Hello, this is Peter Adams, and this is the first in a series of videos that I'll be posting discussing the general topic of supporting our students in reducing the frequency and the severity of error in their writing. I have a term I use for this topic, which isn't accurate, but I just call it sometimes teaching grammar. And I'll talk in, I think it's the third video in the series, about why teaching grammar is really not what I intend to do. But in this video, I want to start. Hello, this is Peter Adams, and this is the first in a series of videos I'm making exploring the general topic of helping our students reduce the frequency and the severity of sentence level error in their writing. I want to start this video with a confession. I've been teaching at CCBC for 36 years, and for all of those 36 years I've been doing something that I refer to casually and inaccurately as teaching grammar. I'll explain, I think it's in the third video in this series, why I think the phrase teaching grammar is not really accurate. But in the meantime, I want to go extend my confession a little further and admit that for about the first 10 years that I was teaching grammar, I always closed the door to my classroom before I did it. And I want to talk for a few minutes in this first video about why that was so, why I closed the classroom door. And the reason was that I was well aware that most of the scholars in the field of composition, most of the research that had been done into teaching grammar had demonstrated that it wasn't a very good idea, and it was something we probably ought not to do. The seminal study on the matter was by Braddock, Lloyd-Jones, and Shore, a book entitled Research in Written Composition, which was published in 1963. And Braddock, Lloyd-Jones, and Shore warned us, quote, that the teaching of formal grammar has a negligible, or because it usually displaces some instruction and practice in actual composition, even a harmful effect on the improvement of writing, end quote. I've always shortened that fairly technical language to just say what Braddock and Lloyd-Jones and Shore demonstrated was that teaching grammar does no good and may do harm because it takes away time from other things that might be helpful. Well, if that's what the research showed, and lots of scholars after their study emphasized it, reinforced it, conducted other studies that concluded the same thing. If that's what the scholarship was showing, then why was I continuing to teach grammar? Well, I wasn't alone. Writing in the 1970s, Bob Connors, in a book entitled Composition-Rhetoric, Bob Connors concluded that all of the studies that show that teaching grammar does no good had been like, quote, a voice crying in the wilderness to little or no practical effect on classroom practice. And many other writers after Connors echoed that view, that despite what the scholarship showed, most of the practitioners, like me, perhaps like you, out there in the field, were still doing something that we thought of as teaching grammar. Now, it would be important to mention one other study, and that was an article written by Martha Kolln, K-O-L-L-N, at the University of Pennsylvania, published in 1981. Her article was entitled Closing the Gap on Alchemy, Closing the Books on Alchemy, and was published in the 3 C's Journal in 1981. And in her study, she really thoroughly found all of the studies that Braddock and Lloyd-Jones and Shore had used in their meta-analysis and evaluated them. And what she concluded was that those studies were themselves seriously flawed by contemporary standards, that they really were not, they didn't provide the solid research background that was claimed in the meta-analysis. But that's not the reason why I was, at that time I wasn't even aware of Martha Colin's article, and it's, I suspect, not the reason most practitioners continue to teach grammar. So why do we? I think it's this. When we meet our real students and look at their real writing in the classroom, it is overwhelmingly clear to us that one of the most obvious weaknesses in their writing is their control over the conventions of standard written English. It's not that there's an occasional apostrophe error or punctuation error or a subject-verb disagreement. It's that their writing is too often riddled with these kinds of errors, and that we are convinced that the effect of this density of error in their writing will be, regardless of the quality of the thinking and the concrete examples and the organization and the transitions, regardless of all that, this density of error will make it unlikely that their writing will be effective with their college teachers, with bosses, with potential bosses to whom they're applying for jobs. So I think what we seem to have concluded, certainly what I've concluded, is that if the scholars were right, and I'm not sure they were, but if they were right, that what we've been doing in the past, under the general umbrella of teaching grammar, did no good, that our answer, my answer, is not to stop trying, but to try harder. My answer is to try to find better ways, more effective ways of helping students to control the error in their writing. And that's what this video series is going to be about. Excuse me. What I'm going to do is, in a series of videos, is discuss various approaches that I have discovered, stolen from other people, made up out of whole cloth, some of which I think have had some success, some of which I thought would have success, but they've had less than I had hoped. And I'm going to discuss these in a series of videotapes. I know that this is a contentious subject. I started with the recognition that there's a lot of tension over this issue in professional circles. I know that some of you won't agree with the approaches I've taken. Some of you may not even agree that we should even be tackling this problem. I also know that some of you have developed approaches that I don't know about that might be more effective than mine. And so what I'm hoping to accomplish by this event on the Alpen website is to initiate a conversation. I hope a robust and exciting conversation in which we can compare notes, compare approaches, compare ideas, compare philosophies about what we can do to help reduce the frequency and the severity of surface level error in our students' writing. I hope you find something useful in these, and I hope I learned something from your responses.